No one wants to talk about boys who've been sexually abused, but an expert says the secrecy and lack of help for boys is creating generations of violent men. One man broke his silence to Carmen Parahi.
There are some things not even the sea can wash away.
He scarred me. He scarred me for life. Eventually it does eat to you and you just turn into a monster. Being adopted and...
Walking beside me is a 45-year-old man willing to overcome his intense fear to tell us his story.
Used to hide under my bed, in my closet with clothes over me, because he'd come in all hours of the night and just take me from my bed when I was asleep.
He says we can identify him, but we won't, because he's just started counselling and it's dredging up raw, cruel memories he's struggling to contain.
And all I remember was waking up, seeing him, and then picking me up, taking me to his room, pulling my pyjama pants down, and by then I've gone back to sleep.
He's starting to realise those hellish childhood experiences created a monster in him that got bigger and uglier as an adult.
I think when the abuse and that started, it turned me into a nasty little boy. I did nothing but get into mischief, thieving, fighting. Got kicked back a year at primary. I was dumb. But now I believe that the abuse and the shit that I went through was a big part. I lost my childhood.
His Pākehā mother, unwed and pregnant to a Taranaki Māori man, gave him up at birth.
They split up and he took off back up to Taranaki, and she couldn't take home a dark baby in those days.
He was adopted by a migrant British family.
Age of 6, just treated bad, sexual abuse, physical abuse. The old man used to knock me out.
But it was another man known to his adopted family. He claims secretly raped and molested him from 6 years old until he was 11.
Everyone's got a secret.
He eventually found an unlikely safe place to escape to.
Everyone's got something.
He joined the mongrel mob when he was kicked out of home, aged 12.
I never told anyone, not even the gang. I just grew up as one hard little boy, you know. I didn't want to know that I'd been messed with, and shame, you know. Carried that shame all my life. What memories I have is what's happened to me as a kid. And I live every day with them, you know.
But now you're trying to get rid of those demons.
I should have got rid of these demons a long, long time ago, because I don't have contact with my kids because of my lifestyle. I've had protection orders out on all of them. I have been violent and abusive.
He says he hasn't sexually abused anyone or hit his children, but has hurt many others, including his children's mothers.
Life sucked for me. Some part there I wanted to waste myself, because, you know, I was in a hole. Same hole, in and out of jail, you know, just, I wasn't going nowhere.
Sadly, his story isn't unique. It's very difficult to estimate how many males have been sexually abused in New Zealand. There's very little research and there's nothing at all about Māori male victims. But what is known is a very high percentage of men who end up here in prison have been abused as children. Ken Clearwater was sexually abused when he was a boy. He now advocates for other victims. A lot of his work is in prisons, where he estimates 60 to 75% of inmates were violated in childhood.
Why this place here is full of our angry young men is because they don't get an opportunity to learn about how they deal with their anger, and they've got every right to be angry, you know, and they've got every right to, and so what it does is they take it out on society who they feel's let them down, and people don't understand that.
Ken believes New Zealand needs to get real about the impact sexual abuse has on boys.
I sit in the prison units with 18-stone gang members, Māori gang members, and I'm actually sitting in there with a frightened little boy, and people can't come to terms with that there's a guy who was really hurt as a child, never had an opportunity to grow up and to be a child, to grow into a normal, healthy adult, and until we change that, then we are going to continue building these prisons, and that sickens me, because that money would be better spent on our kids.
Ken says boys who are sexually abused and not helped as children can grow into very angry men with serious antisocial behaviours, including violence, drug and alcohol dependency and crime, costing this country billions of dollars to deal with.
So all we hear is these nasty, horrible, angry men. Let's lock them up. Well, I say let's help them as children. And then the ones that are locked up that have been abused as children, let's make sure that the services are available.
But there are very few services specifically for male victims. It's an indicator New Zealand continues to ignore sexual abuse.
We don't like to accept it as a society. We don't want to see males as victims, and males don't want to see themselves as victims.
Ken's work over 15 years gives him the confidence to estimate 1 in 4 New Zealand boys are sexually abused, the same as girls.
As a society, as sick it is, we've accepted that women and girls are victims of sexual abuse, and that's okay that they're victims, but it's not okay for males to be victims. And so that's the difficult part that we really face. Every day I'm banging my head saying, hey, we've got these statistics here, can we get some research done, can we get some resources into it, can we get the help we need to do this work? And it's just not there, and and I think it is because simply we are working with males, and that's really weird, because if we're gonna strengthen our families, we need to strengthen our men.
For this victim of sexual abuse, his dream is to rebuild the family he destroyed.
Well, my first dream is to try and be a normal person so I can see my kids. It's practically what I live for now, is my kids, because I haven't been there and I want to be there.
He's laid an official complaint with police against the man he says raped and molested him nearly 40 years ago. They're investigating his claims. He says if only he'd been able to tell someone what was going on when he was a kid, he wouldn't have suffered or hurt others the way he did.
My good path started when I started my counselling, and I met Ken. Take that away, I wouldn't be here today talking to you. I'd be still living in shame.
He's hoping by sharing his story, it will encourage New Zealand families to help their boys.
It's not a story that I like to talk about. It's always scared me, frightened me. Because what happened to me, I know now, it wasn't my fault. It was just a little boy. So I've got nothing to be ashamed and hide. It wasn't my doing.
These are the feelings from our heart.
I just wish it never had happened,
Love and affection. Love for me and love for you.
Nā, ki te pirangi āwhina koe, ki te pirangi rāne koe ki te whāki take tai tōkai, me waia whakapupuni atu koe kia 0508 Family. Ara kore rima kore rau, toru rau ono whā rima iwa. A tērā wiki ka kōrero mātou ki tētahi tangata raweke tamariki, ko te kaupapa me pēhea te tauārai atu i ngā tāngata pērā iaia kia haumaru ai ngā tamariki.